As I continued my reading and research, I discovered what Jewish scholars believe is the historical origin of the Jew-Gentile conflict. If one delves back into the pages of Genesis, preceding the story of Joseph, one comes upon the striking story of Isaac and Rebekah and their two sons, Esau and Jacob. The Jewish faith claims the two sons represent the two separate nations of Jew and Gentile. This is from Genesis chapter 25, and I'll quote you verses from that chapter. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother Jacob, and he took hold on Esau's heel. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau, because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And Esau came from the field, and he was faint, he was sick. And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, for I pray I am sick. Feed me with the same red pottage. Afterward he was called Edom, after the red pottage. And Jacob said, I will feed you for the price of your birthright. And Esau said, I am at the point of death. What good will my birthright do for me? And Jacob said, Swear to me your birthright, and I will feed you. Esau swore to him and sold his birthright, and Jacob fed him bread and pottage. And when Esau ate and drank, he got better. He went away. Close quote. Now Esau's good and faithful conduct causes him to remain Isaac's favorite, ailing and of poor eyesight. Isaac calls Esau and asks him to hunt down and bring him some venison, saying that after he did this, he would offer him the blessing of God. Rebekah, upon hearing this, schemes with Jacob to pretend that he is Esau and bring Isaac ram meat prepared to taste like venison. Jacob disguises himself to feel and even smell like Esau. Jacob then lies to his father and presents himself as the firstborn Esau. Ultimately, from this deceit and treachery, he receives his father's blessing. 19. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that you may bless me. Then Isaac said to Jacob, Come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He said, Are you really my son Esau? He answered, I am. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. Returning from the hunt with the venison, Esau discovers that his brother had deceived his father and cheated him of his blessing. This is from verse 33. I have eaten before you came, and have blessed him, yes, and he will be blessed. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said to his father, Bless me also, O my beloved father. And he said, My brother came in deceit and took away my blessing. He has robbed me 2 times. First he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. Father, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Isaac, behold, I have made him your Lord, and all his brethren I have given to him for servants. And Esau lifted up his voice to him and wept. And by your sword shall you live and serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when you have dominion, you will break Jacob's yoke from your neck. Jacob and Esau found reconciliation 22 years later, but according to Jewish commentary, Esau's descendants became the Gentile Edomites, while Jacob's became the Jews. Jewish scholars later referred to the Romans as Edomites, and the term Esau became synonymous with Europeans and all Gentiles. The story of Jacob and Esau is an allegory of the Jew and Gentile with which the Jewish religion still identifies. Allusions to Esau are found in Raphael Patai's popular book, The Jewish Mind, and hundreds of other Jewish works. Sholem Aleichem, the famous Yiddish language author, wrote in his autobiography about a crude Russian ferryman, quote, Esau, only a goy could do work like that, not a Jew. The Bible says of Esau, and thou shalt serve thy brother. It is good that I am a descendant of Jacob and not of Esau. Popular Jewish intellectual writer Sidney Hook recounts how he questioned his Jewish teacher about the injustice of Jacob's actions against Esau. He quotes the rabbi as saying, "What kind of question is that? Esau was an animal." Jacob, who became renamed Israel, is considered the father of the Jewish people. Esau is seen as the archetype of the Gentile. Because Jews suggest that Jews are always blameless of the anti-Semitism inherent in Gentiles, Esau's hatred of Jacob is considered also the origin of anti-Semitism as well. Rabbi Leon Spitz, quoted in the American Hebrew, illustrates the depth of hatred of many Jews for Esau and his descendants. And I quote, "Let Esau whine and wail and protest to the civilized world, and let Jacob fight the good fight. The anti-Semite understands but one language, and he must be dealt with on his own level. The Purim Jews stood up for their lives. American Jews, too, must come to grips with our contemporary anti-Semites. We must fill our jails with anti-Semitic gangsters. We must fill our insane asylums with anti-Semitic lunatics. We must combat every alien Jew hater. We must harass and prosecute our Jew baiters to the extreme limits of the laws. We must humble and shame our anti-Semitic hoodlums to such an extent that none will wish or dare to become their fellow travelers." Unquote. When I understood that Jacob and Esau are an apt Jewish allegory for the eternal conflict between Jew and Gentile from a Jewish perspective, I realized that Gentiles might learn from it too. Is not the fact that Esau worked hard in the fields while Jacob stayed in tents symbolic of the history of Jew and Gentile? It corresponds perfectly with the Europeans' inherent love of nature, the outdoors, and land, with the Jews' love of urban life. Even reading the account written from the bias of Jacob's descendants, would not any fair-minded person find Esau's tears and rage justified? Is Jacob blameless and innocent, or was Esau the one cheated? Shylock asking for a, quote, pound of flesh in Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice represents no less avarice and cold-heartedness than does Jacob withholding food from a sick brother so that he could steal his birthright. In addition, consider Jacob's disguising of himself to defraud both his father and brother. Is that what the Jewish scholars see as justice? Is Esau's anger hate and, quote, anti-Semitism? Is it anti-Semitic to note that by its own account, Israel found its earliest roots in fraud, treachery, and deceit, and that it boasts about it? Perhaps Isaac was prophetic when he said that Esau would be a servant to his brother until he obtained dominion, complete control of the land in which he lived, and thus broke Jacob's yoke from around his neck. Even though the Philo-Semitic version of history is one long tale of Jewish woe at the hands of Gentiles, Jacob's descendants are certainly not the only ones who have suffered. Esau's children have lost untold billions to the descendants of Jacob in usury and fraud and